which are also equitably distributed. So if you ask anybody in Wajir or the residents of Wajir, every year we are spending 750 million shillings divided by 30 wards, 25 million shillings per ward, irrespective of whether they voted the governor or not. That is equal opportunity for everybody. For the bigger ones, bigger projects like dams, and which are more than 5 million, then those ones are equitably distributed depending on where the problems are. The other aspect now is on the issue of health. Mr. Speaker, my officers have given adequate information regarding the status of health in Wajir County. It is very unfortunate that one of the issues that have been picked is the absence of electricity or a generator, for that matter, that was supposed to provide power to our oxygen plant, which resulted in us getting oxygen from the neighboring county of Mandera and also from Nairobi. But the main reason, Mr. Speaker, is that Wajir, the whole county or the town of Wajir depends, we are not on the grid, national grid. For power, we depend on generators driven by diesel. And just imagine, if a generator keeps on, if it is on throughout the day and night, then there's a lot of breakdown. So the problem has been that we used to have a lot of problem with the power supply to the hospital, and as a result, we could not power that oxygen plant which we had. However, we have already purchased a generator, a big generator, which is about 500 kVA, that is able to provide power not only to the oxygen plant, but also it provides power to the whole hospital. The other thing which we have done since I came to be a governor of Wajir is that there were a lot of other services which we provided. We have built over 50 health facilities, dispensaries, and other small health facilities countywide. That means a lot of money has been spent on that. And this is nearly all the wards we have. At least every ward has one dispensary or more. We bought also some ambulances, and right now as we talk, we have 16 ambulances that are operational. We repaired those ones that were old. We repaired them. We purchased the 3. We were given 2 by the national government and 1 by IGAD. The other one, Mr. Speaker, is that in our diagnostic survey that was carried out by the national government, Wajir County correctly diagnosed 89%. It was given 89% for diagnostic of the diseases. While some of the other counties were much below 10% and so forth and so on. So we were rated among the best. In fact, we were number 2 in Kenya as far as diagnostic of diseases is concerned. Garissa was number 1, followed by Wajir. And this was done just the last 2 years. The availability of priority drugs by a Wajir County government was number 13 with 59%, 13 out of 47 counties. So we have not, in spite of being very far away from Nairobi and with poor communication and the size of the county being so vast, we were still able to be number 13, which is about 59%. Availability of vaccines by facility types across the county was number 4 with 81.8%. The other one is availability of equipment in hospitals. We were number 20 with 50%. That's availability of equipment. Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, the main impeachment is said to be gross violation of the Constitution by not providing adequate health facilities. Mr. Speaker, according to me and my county, we have provided enough. We have a lot of challenges, Mr. Speaker. You should understand the challenges facing those counties that are very far away. In spite of all these challenges, we were able to make this progress, and others that we cannot mention here because of time. I wish to plead, Mr. Speaker, with the Senate to be sympathetic and should not just be, impeach me because of one aspect. We can say it could be I could be impeached for violation of the Constitution, but it cannot be gross misconduct. Mr. Speaker, I would like the Senate to look into this matter very carefully, to be humane and give us a chance so that we are able to serve the people of Wajir. Otherwise, with those many remarks, thank you very much, and may God bless you.
Okay, Council, you want to add? You want to use the remaining time, yeah?
Yes, we still have some reserved time. I would want to share my...
Okay. Okay.
My line friend, then I can do the sum up, Mr. Mburu.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In defense of the Governor, we do wish to make the following observations in respect to the report that you're going to debate this evening. An impeachment process is a process that should be guided by the rule of law, that should echo the sentiments of both the political and legal aspirations of the citizens of the county of which the governor to be impeached hails from, and these being the Senate, the aspirations of Kenyans. Therefore, it is prudent when interrogating the report that is before you to ensure that the threshold of impeaching the governor has been met, and the threshold is not a new phenomenon. It is a phenomenon that has been before this House, and this House, being a House of precedents, has deliberated and set out in detail what the threshold of impeachment should be. Therefore, the main allegation against the governor is to be found from paragraph 188 to 185, to 188 of the report that is before this House this evening. The report alleges that there were incidences of where a citizen was denied the services of an ambulance, and the other incidents that has been captured therein is in respect to the death of a senior county official due to the unavailability of oxygen. However, as the chairman was tabling the report, he did admit that no witness was called to prove the said allegation, and therefore, in the event that that allegation has not been proved, or the allegations therein have not been proved, then the threshold of impeachment based on the ground of failure of the health sector in Wajir County should not be held to stand. Therefore, it is an impeachment that should not solely be based on a flimsy ground of which evidence has not been tendered, an admission to the same has been done, and therefore we urge this House that in considering the report to look at the tenets of Article 50 on impartiality and looking at the issues before it without favoring any party, and find that in the event that the evidence in respect to a charge has not been proved, then the House ought to not be persuaded to support that charge. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, sir, I do wish to highlight a very important issue from the report that deals with the issue of health vis-a-vis previous impeachments that have been before this House. In particular, the issue of health was a common phenomenon in the impeachment in Kirinyaga County, and a doctor in that report highlighted how the health sector had invariably broken down in that said county. But the finding was different from what we have today. Article 27 of the Constitution provides that any citizen has the right to equal benefit and protection of the law. There should be no preferential treatment in respect to matters that are similar. In those few remarks, I would urge this House this evening not to be persuaded by that report and not find that the allegations against the governor have been substantiated. That is all. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome.
Speaker, sir, we will be very brief in utilizing the time that is remaining, simply because this House, Mr. Speaker, sir, is this evening called upon to relook as to whether they shall have a Pontius Pilate moment. A Pontius Pilate moment, Mr. Speaker, sir, where the innocent is crucified and the guilty are set free. The Pontius Pilate moment, Mr. Speaker, sir, is not unique to our provisions of law. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is largely said in the common law principles that it's better to release 100 convicts other than to have one innocent person convicted. That innocent person, Mr. Speaker, sir, is before you this evening. Honorable members, the Pontius Pilate moment is before you. The Pontius Pilate moment is before you in the sense that within all the other allegations, some of them grievous and touching on the utilization of the finances and the resources of this country, the governor has been set free. That shows that the governor does not have itchy fingers. That shows that the governor has never had his hands in the cookie jar. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is phenomenal for persons serving in public services, and most importantly in the position of a governor, to find themselves having crisscrossed with the public finances. But even as we look at the fate of the governor this evening, the governor has been acquitted of all those charges. What remains, Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable members, is to interrogate whether what has been presented before this House meets the threshold. The other thing that remains to be interrogated, as my learned friend has indicated, is whether this House shall be guided by the principle of its doctrines and the doctrines of precedents that have been set previously. It remains to be found, Mr. Speaker, sir, whether the governor before you, who pleads for your mercy, will have an equal treatment of the law. Mr. Speaker, it is calling for a moment of equality of arms. It is calling for a moment where Article 27 ought to be put into consideration. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is giving a comparative study of the impeachments that have been brought before you and before this House, and with the recent one where there was an acquittal of Governor Waiguru, the County Assembly brought 3 witnesses, of whom all of them were medical doctors. The star witness being Dr. Gurgodi. Mr. Speaker, sir, they gave a clear analysis of how the health system had broken down in Kirinyaga County. Most importantly, the question of Kirinyaga County was not something that was happening in camera. It happened in the glare of the camera instead. You recall there was uproars, there was hue and outcries. The hospital was in a pathetic situation. The doctors testified. But this House returned a verdict of not guilty. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is no evidence that was tabled. There was no doctor who was called by the County Assembly. The only person who testified, and when put to test through examination, was an MCA. Just one single MCA, alleging that the members of Wajir County are forced to fuel their ambulances. When called to task to provide evidence when the ambulance was fueled, who fueled, where it was fueled, who paid, how it was paid, the receipt for the payments, he could not tender evidence. He only said, the governor is liable. Why was the governor liable, Mr. Speaker, sir? The allegation was, the buck stops at him. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, the fundamental question is, shall a father be bearing the sins, or shall we carry the sins of our sons? Shall we be held vicariously liable for all things that happens in our own homes? If my child breaks my neighbor's door, should I be held liable? If my Wajir Jr. breaks or hits my neighbor's child, should I be held liable? Mr. Speaker, sir, it is time for everybody to carry his cross. The cross that the governor is carrying this evening does not belong to him. There is nobody who has been surcharged for those issues. Mr. Speaker, sir, why should there be a different fighting? Mr. Speaker, sir, the fundamental question, as I sum up, I can see the light is coming up. In Governor Chepkoni's case, this House held that it's not every allegation that should amount to the draconian action of impeaching the governor. For one reason, impeachment have the ability of disorganizing government. We only have about 10 months to go. Why should we disorganize Wajir County? This man before you caught all the way from 2017 up to 2018, struggling with election petition. That means he has only consistently been able to serve for 1 year. 2020 came, COVID came, and here he is being convicted for COVID. Mr. Speaker, sir, we all know that even today, the Ministry of Health has announced various unfortunate deaths of our dear ones. Who should carry the cross for those deaths? What about in the subcontinent of India, where people are dying in thousands because of COVID? Should Prime Minister Modi carry the cross? I mean, Mr. Speaker, sir, these are some of the pathetic situations that the COVID situation has put us in. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are here to plead for your mercy. The county is 55,000 square kilometers with over 200 hospitals. The county of Nairobi is 669 square kilometers with equal number of hospitals. Doesn't this man before you deserve credit? Look at the county of Kirinyaga, 1,149 square kilometers with about 50 hospitals. Doesn't this man deserve your mercy? Hasn't he done enough? Does he deserve to be impeached? Mr. Speaker, sir, we appeal to this honorable house to have mercy on this man. He has been in public service for over a quarter of a century. He has diligently served this country. Is it only so hard to have him and to plead with you to have him finish the 10 months? Then the Wajir people will be granted an opportunity to evaluate him through the power of the votes. Mr. Speaker, sir, this assembly is being called upon to protect the devolution. Protecting devolution also means protecting governors from such kind of attacks through frivolous means. That means, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the governor before you is also under your protection, under your mercy, that you protect devolution from infiltrations by people who have ulterior motives. He has indicated to you, Mr. Speaker, sir, about the dynamic and the demographic distribution of the people of Wajir, where clanism is so fundamental in the manner in which county governments are constituted and how they are run. Could it be, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the clanism of Wajir and the entire Somali northern eastern counties is at play? Would this assembly be then invited to look at that from that perspective? Then, if it is in play, should this assembly be involved in fighting someone's battles? Mr. Speaker, sir, we plead for your mercy. As you, Operation Rise, Article 96, as read together with Article 174, kindly look at the question of protecting devolution. Protecting devolution means that there should be perpetuity and continuity of government. There should be perpetuity of government. Was there evidence tabled to show that this man is guilty, Mr. Speaker, sir? We urge you, Mr. Speaker, to fight this man innocent. Mr. Speaker, sir, this... Mr. Speaker, sir,
Okay.
again, we have the Simpson situation. If the glove does not fit, acquit. The glove that has been shown to this man of his work and his diligence, deliverance in the health sector fits that he continues. The allegations do not square out with the man before you. We so urge you, Mr. Speaker, to consider our mitigations, to consider our facts, and acquit this innocent man. Much obliged.
Thank you so much, Council. Thank you very much, Honorable Governor. The floor is now open to the senators to contribute to the motion. Senator Moses Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, you probably might need to give us guidance on how long we have to contribute, because I know there will be a lot of interest from members, and time is also ticking. That will also help me to organize my presentation, Mr. Speaker.
What? Sorry, you said the what? The time, you know, the gazettement goes up to midnight.
Correct. So we have the usual 20 minutes, because this is a motion.
Yep, you have the 20 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I intend to take less than that, because having listened to the governor and to his team, and having read the report of the committee, I am still trying to form my thoughts about what has been brought to this House. Mr. Speaker, when this House voted to try this matter through a committee, we gave the team of 11, men and women who were not imposed on us, men and women who were chosen by our respective coalitions. Mr. Speaker, you do recall that unlike in the past, where the motion for a committee was brought by the leadership having gone through SBC, this time round, the House voted to go for a committee, and it is only upon the resolution of the House to go for a committee that the committees were constituted. Mr. Speaker, that means that this House has full confidence in the 11 men and women who went to test this matter and who have brought a report to the House today. What is the verdict of the committee? The committee is unanimous. Mr. Speaker, I've rarely seen a report that has been signed by all members of a committee. Even the report of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee on the Building Bridges Initiative, there were a few abstentions. I think Honorable Junet Mohamed didn't sign, Opondo Kalumba did not sign, and a few others did not sign. But in this case, all the 11 members of this committee signed the report. So, Mr. Speaker, when you establish a committee to establish the allegations, and you give them resources, and you give them time, and you give them the best legal advice, and they come back and tell us that allegations are substantiated, we need to take it seriously. However, Mr. Speaker, this committee has brought to us what I would call a poison chalice. When you want to kill a cow, you go for the jugular. You don't cut the leg, hoping that by cutting the leg it will bleed to death. Mr. Speaker, there were 17 allegations and 2 charges. Out of the 17 allegations, 1 is substantiated. The others are not substantiated. This is cutting the leg of a cow for it to bleed to death. It is not going for the jugular. What we have seen in counties and our collective experience with county governments is that there is so much graft in county governments, in procurement departments, and the county assembly, which I must congratulate, because they took the bold action of deciding this matter at their local level and bringing this matter to the Senate. And I want to encourage county assemblies across the nation that there is no governor who is above the law. There is no governor who cannot be impeached, and there is no governor who cannot be brought to the Senate. Mr. Speaker, the county assembly had charges relating to procurement. The committee found them substantiated. Had allegations relating to corruption. They were found unsubstantiated. There were some very interesting allegations relating to the office of the First Lady, which is a stranger in law, Mr. Speaker. You go to all these county governments, you find people going by the names of First Lady. That's absolute hogwash. I don't see anywhere in the County Governments Act or any of the relevant pieces of statute where you have someone called a First Lady to be utilizing county resources and to be blackmailing and intimidating officers in county governments. And I like the way the chair of the committee said it, that you cannot stop a governor from being romantic and intimate with the wife. Be romantic and intimate in your bedroom and in your house, but not within the presence of the county government where you're the chief executive officer. Mr. Speaker, the reason why I say that we are trying to bleed the cow to death by cutting its leg is because the focus of the charges or the focus of the allegations have been on the health sector. And nothing is more important than the health sector to county governments. Because this is one of the most important functions, leave alone roads. If you build roads and your people are dying, then you are doing nonsense. You are not doing anything of value to your people. And I think that if we focus properly on the health sector, 47 governors plus 1 president would be impeached today. If there is someone who has failed to deliver health services to the people of the Republic of Kenya in the midst of the COVID pandemic, Mr. Speaker, we have reports from the Health Committee, the head of state, and his bureaucrats. If you look at our respective counties, each county, right now the Health Committee is looking at COVID expenditure for each of the 47 county governments. There is no single county government that has justified its expenditure on COVID funds. It is this House that looked at the managed equipment scheme, and we failed to get a resolution on the managed equipment scheme. Today we have said this governor should go home, and so far we have the report of the committee, and I think that's a default position. that the governor should go home because the renal units that were supplied to him through an opaque process called the Managed Equipment Scheme were not working. How many counties have failed to use their renal units, their dialysis units, their ICUs are not working? For reasons as small as electricity and reasons as small as the poor quality of water. I visited Samburu, Mr. Speaker. I found the Managed Equipment Scheme equipment were all kept in boxes. Why? Because they did not have a reliable supply of water in those health facilities. But this House failed to come to a resolution. Of course, we did come to a resolution because the Health Committee told us that the Managed Equipment Scheme was a fraud, but the House did not confirm that report by the Health Committee. But the governor has failed to put in place the renal units, and for this, he has compromised the health of the people of Wajir. Mr. Speaker, a health worker died due to lack of oxygen. This is gross negligence. But this gross negligence extends to 47 county governments. In my own county of Homa Bay, Mr. Speaker, it is sad that we lost a young nurse who was at the Racholio District Hospital, died because of COVID complications. And if the MCAs of Homa Bay are watching this, if the Wajir governor can be impeached because a health worker died because of lack of oxygen, I want to encourage them to impeach my governor because a health worker also died because the county government could not provide that health worker with appropriate care. Mr. Speaker, we have read in the report that Wajir County has allocated 22% of its budget to the health sector. I think if we did a study on allocations to the health sector by counties, this probably could rank among the best. Having sat in the Public Accounts Committee, 22% of budgets to health is no mean task. Many county governments are allocating 22% in total to development because most of their money goes into salaries and into operations. And Mr. Speaker, if indeed this is true, and because it is contained in the report, I think the county government of Wajir has done a good job by allocating that amount of money to healthcare. We have seen also the Kenya Integrated Health System and data that comes from there. We have seen the outcomes on prenatal, antenatal visits, the outcome on immunization, and the other indicators of success in the health sector. But, Mr. Speaker, the governor has not paid workers in the health sector. Strikes are the order of the day. And when strikes are the order of the day, it means that the residents of Wajir cannot get the services that they so desire. For all the 47 counties where health workers consistently strike, like Homa Bay County, like Kisumu County, like those other counties, impeach your governors, because today we are impeaching the governor of Wajir because his health workers are going on strike. And if today we establish that that is impeachable, then I want to see 47, the other 46 county governors coming to this House to be impeached if we are using the same standard. Mr. Speaker, I read in the report that out of 50 doctors, or such number, 20 doctors are away. They are away on study leave. We as senators, every other day we get calls from health workers. They have gotten scholarships. Mr. Speaker, the other day I was dealing with a case where a young doctor got a scholarship to go to Muhimbili in Tanzania to study oncology. And we know what menace cancer is in this country. And we know how short we are of qualified oncologists in our county governments. The CEC and the people in the county refused to give her the opportunity to go and study. Why? Because they thought that they had to deal with malaria and other basic things rather than issues like oncology. Even if we are impeaching the governor of Wajir today, but we must hail him for ensuring that his doctors are receiving training. 20 out of 50 doctors on training, and I hope they're on full scholarship, that they didn't just acquire those opportunities on their own. Mr. Speaker, that to me tells a story of a government that out of its many bad policies, at least it has one good policy on development of its staff. Mr. Speaker, the CEO of the county is the governor. The person responsible for health services is the CEC and the chief officer for health. And I think the decision we are going to make today will be precedent setting Mr. Speaker, in the past, even when some of us here, a few of us here were governors before they came to this house, we have insisted that the governor is a chief executive officer. If a spoon disappears in the stores, the governor must tell us why the spoon disappeared in the store. Because he's a CEO and the buck stops there. Now, what I've seen in many counties is that when the health sector is messed up, they first deal with the CEC Health. They first impeach the CEC Health. I don't know whether the honorable members from Wajir dealt with the CEC Health, dealt with the Chief Officer Health. But the governor cannot run away because he's the Chief Executive Officer. I would love to see a situation where the governor is being impeached and it's being confirmed at the Senate, but the CEC Health is also taking responsibility for his inefficiency and for his incapacity and for his failure to provide health services to the people of Wajir. I've seen in other counties, and Mr. Speaker, I want to use this opportunity to educate our members of county assembly, not just in Homa Bay County, but in the other 46 county assemblies. When the health sector is suffering, which is such an important devolved function, do not run around dealing with small fish, dealing with their menace. And I think that the formula of Wajir is important, that the CEO, when he wakes up in the morning, he must know what is going on in the health sector. My county, I came back from Homa Bay today. In the referral hospital, there is no toilet for outpatient visitors. In a county referral hospital, Mr. Speaker, and you ask yourself, if there was going to be an outbreak of cholera or other diseases that are spread through human waste, what is going to happen? And you know what my brothers and sisters in Homa Bay did? They impeached the CEC Health, Professor Muga, and then, after impeaching him, told the governor to take over the health docket. If the governor has failed in supervising his CEC, if he has failed in pushing his CEC to ensure that there's quality in that department, how else are you going to tell the governor to take over that function if he has already abdicated his duty in the first place? Mr. Speaker, if we impeach the governor of Wajir, or when we impeach the governor of Wajir, depending on where you stand, because the committee has told us we should impeach him because 1 out of 17 allegations have been substantiated. And those are our rules. That is not an invention of the chair of the committee, and that's not an invention of the 11 men and women. If one charge is substantiated and we confirm that, the governor goes home. Mr. Speaker, the issue of insecurity that cuts across not just the health sector, but even the education sector. We have seen our brothers and sisters, when they are posted to frontier counties, they clamor to come back. Are we going to build a nation where Otieno can never teach in Wajir, or where Abdullahi can never teach in Migori? Are we building a system where Wafula can never teach in Garissa? We must look at the big picture and how insecurity has impacted on certain professions, doctors, teachers, and those professions that you cannot develop internally. Is it impeachable that doctors and health workers are running away because of insecurity? We will impeach the governor of Wajir, and once we impeach him, let's impeach the president, because he's the one responsible for providing and guaranteeing the security of all professionals in this republic. Mr. Speaker, the will of the people, if you look at the numbers, you will see that 41% of the 118,000 voters in Wajir had confidence in Governor Mahmoud. Mr. Speaker, sometimes I like it when you allow people to enjoy or to suffer the consequences of their bad decisions. If the 41% made a bad decision, we probably should allow them to enjoy the consequences of that bad decision of electing Governor Mahmoud. We should allow them the pleasure or the pain of Governor Mahmoud's leadership, because it was a majority. But then again, Mr. Speaker, it is our duty as Parliament to relieve the 59% who did not support Governor Mahmoud of the suffering, of the tyranny of the 41% that supported Governor Mahmoud. Mr. Speaker, the committee has advised us accordingly, unanimously. The committee has decided that to kill this cow, we don't cut the neck, we cut the leg. The committee hopes that the cow will die bleeding. Mr. Speaker, a cow without one leg can still walk. Ultimately, it will be the 47 delegations in this House to make a decision. But the county assembly is watching. If we impeach Governor of Wajir today, please bring all your governors, because they have all failed pathetically in providing health services to our citizens. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Langat.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me this particular chance to make my observation. It is very important to note, first of all, that this is a very important process, that today the people of Wajir are expecting this particular very important house at least to determine whatever it will happen to them in the next 10 months. We may ignore 10 months that these are very few months that we can let anything to go that way. But I want to say even 1 week or even 1 day for a dangerous person means a lot to the lives of the people of this particular country. So I want to say that it is so important that we must consider every allegation that has been brought to this particular house very keenly, Mr. Speaker, so that our judgment may actually satisfy the needs and the wishes of the people of Wajir. I want to say that, Mr. Speaker, in churches that are brought before us, I've read, and I can see the first one, that gross violation of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, the County Government Act 2012, and public procurement and disposal, all those. This is a very serious violation, and we are seeing all this happening in our counties. Just as once upon a time, Senator Wetangula says, in every 5 years, this particular country goes on an exercise to elect very humble 47 governors who, after 5 years, they have become millionaires and billionaires. And I want to say that at my first observation of this, I really felt for the people of Wajir. And then after going through the observations of these particular allegations, and I want to say that we must also be very careful so that people outside there may not make this particular very important house as a lynching ground. That is why we must be very keen, we must be very observant for every allegation that is brought before us. So when I saw the first allegation, failure to account for the financial resources allocated to the county, so many things, Mr. Speaker, comes to my mind. I'm in the CPI committee currently, and one of the greatest challenges that we are facing is most of the governors are not willing to come and account for the resources that we've been giving them. Some of them give very flimsy excuses that do not hold any water. They fail to appear at the last minute, rendering the Senate committee to become almost useless. We were in Kisi waiting, some of them who never appeared. The last minute they give some excuses that are so funny. I want to say that this failure to account for the public resources that you've been given is actually a gross violation of the Constitution. Because first of all, it hampers with the process of the oversight. But when I read the observation by the committee, that the committee finds that the allegation was not proved and was therefore not substantiated, I tend to think that the trap that I had laid has gone scot-free. The next one, lack of accountability in the management of the county resources. It's just the same as that one. The committee again finds that the allegation was not proved and was therefore not substantiated. I was looking forward to the next one, perhaps maybe that one of allegation number 4, violation of Article 176, 1, and 185 of the Constitution. To me, I usually understand very well that when we are building a very strong conclusion, the premises must logically involve the process. So when I observe not substantiated, no evidence, no what, I tend to think that here in the Senate, we've got to advise, more often than not, our partners in the county assemblies that things that we feel that they have got the weight of impinging a government.
With Ethereum, what is very interesting, as you point out, it is overshadowing the rise in Bitcoin, which is also dramatic. Bitcoin is double.
They must be so important to the point of getting to the threshold. So I've been going through all this, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say that when it comes to matters in our counties, delay of payment of the pending bills and the rest, this one cuts across all the counties. And whenever we want to arrive at a very important solution to every problem, we must dig deeply, Mr. Speaker, on the causes. Wherever we go round, in fact, most of the governors have been telling us that there are a lot of delays from the Treasury in releasing monies to the counties, to the point that so many issues have been accumulating. And you see everybody in the county is in that particular government. They don't know any story to do with the delays of the monies from the Treasury, and want to say that part of the failures that we are experiencing today in our counties emanate from the Treasury. They delay the payments. When the payments are released to our counties, already the projects which had been started are stalling, becoming white elephants. And most of the contractors, Mr. Speaker, have left their work. Most of their things have been taken away by banks and so forth. So another problem that we must look at as this particular House of Oversight is to make sure that these particular people get money on time to allow us to do thorough oversight. When it comes to the issues of health, it is so funny. I was also in my county hospital, Rivaro Longisa Hospital, last week on Friday. And I found that the issues that are happening that the hospital is facing, I was surprised during this particular time of COVID-19 that in the maternity ward, 2 people are sharing a bed. It is very funny. The whole of last week, people were complaining because of lack of water. So these particular issues cuts across all the counties. I want to say, as Senator Kachwang was saying, and if this is the trend, we must call upon all our MCAs to impeach all our governors to come here so that we may see exactly what is happening in our counties and look for a permanent solution to the problems that our counties are facing. I've seen also another allegation, failure to establish the county budget and economic forum. This is another very serious allegation, but when you see the observation of the committee, Mr. Speaker, the committee finds the governor had taken steps towards establishing a county budget and economic forum. The allegation was not substantiated. You go through all these allegations. They are so attractive in the very beginning, but when you get deeply to the observation by the committee, no evidence, you see, not substantiated. Allegation, failure to establish an audit committee, which cuts across. If you check all the audit reports in those particular books, audit reports we've been given all the time. These are always the allegations that are there. But this one, the committee finds that the allegation was not proved and was therefore not substantiated. When I see out of 15, almost 14 allegations are not substantiated, I tend to think very seriously that something must be done by our county assemblies to make sure that at least whatever comes to the Senate must arrive at the threshold. It must be convincing, even to the people outside there, that something surely is in the Senate. Allegation, and Mr. Speaker, charges number 2, I also saw abuse of the powers and the authority. As somebody was saying, these cuts across most of the counties. People have established first ladies' offices, whereby you find the wife of the governor is enjoying an office there. They have been given a lot of finances. They have a lot of authorities. They go around the offices harassing people, things which are not in the Constitution. So I was expecting in this particular charges, Mr. Speaker, to see a robust accusation with evidence that we can really, by the end of the day, be able to impeach the governor with substance. So the allegations that are here, the committee finds the allegation was not proven and was therefore not substantiated. Violation of Article 73(2). The committee finds the allegation was not proven and was therefore unsubstantiated. That is the poetry, or that is the song that is moving from one particular allegation to the other. So I don't want to belabor so much of this particular debate, Mr. Speaker, but I want to say that in future, when such particular impeachment happens, I want to urge our counties to make sure that, our MCAs to make sure that they really look for evidence that are strong enough to give to this particular house that particular charisma, that particular courage to go through and be able to come out with proper impeachment, substantial information. So I want to say that I'm still reading so that I may make proper conclusion on this particular when it comes to voting. Otherwise, as of now, I want to ask county MCAs to be very serious when it comes to impeachment matters. They're also expensive to our counties, and I want to ask them to be doing thorough oversight activities in their county so that they may support us, because most of our times, Mr. Speaker, we are here in the Senate. It's unfortunate that whenever you hear also, most of the counties we have gone, you hear the people, the society, the public saying that most of the MCAs have gone in bed with their county governors and they are unable to do the oversight. So the whole county is always expecting us to arrive there on Saturday and on Sunday to be able to go around and see the projects. So I want to encourage the members of county assemblies down there that they should support this particular Senate in monitoring those particular projects that are being initiated, evaluate them from the time of the beginning to the very end, and be able to explain step by step to the people of the public so that the people of the public may know the progress of the projects that are going on in our counties. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the county assemblies are very important to us, and I want to say that we encourage them all the time not to be in bed with their governors, but to make sure that they do thorough oversight wherever we are not there, so that they give this particular very important house good report that will enable us to make sure that we make thorough, informative decision. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chariot. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this chance. Mr. Speaker, this is a very interesting scenario. We are reading through the report and listening to the petitions by the warring parties from Wajir. That is the county assembly and the executive led by the governor. Mr. Speaker, I've had opportunity to read through largely the report that has been brought by members of the select committee that we approved. First of all, Mr. Speaker, we must appreciate the difference in terms of the thoroughness of the work that has been done by this committee, and sometimes when we choose to conduct impeachment trials by plenary. This committee, I must commend them for a job well done, because if you read through the report, Mr. Speaker, you get a sense of the intrigues of the challenges that bedevil the county of Wajir under the leadership of a governor that is before this House. Mr. Speaker, it is proper that as a House of Senate, we look back to the journey that we have traveled as a nation before setting up of systems of devolution and the clamor for it, Mr. Speaker. In that in the previous elections, before the 2013 general elections, Mr. Speaker, devolution was a big electoral question, and it split the country into half, with the centralists versus those who believed in the dispersion of resources from the middle. And therefore, with the arrival of devolution, Mr. Speaker, the fortunate thing that you will notice is that there is a unanimous agreement across the country, wherever you move in this republic, Mr. Speaker, that devolution was the right thing to do. However, Mr. Speaker, we must guard that gain so jealously, bearing in mind that many of the citizens of this country at this point in time are disillusioned with the promise of devolution 8 years down the line. Because you could remove the name of Wajir County from this report and insert any other county, any of the 47 counties, and you'll find all of these issues that are being raised by the County of Assembly to be true, if not worse, of the state of devolution in our various county governments. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the question that we face this evening as a Senate is, what do we do with the case that has been brought before us, Mr. Speaker? I do not agree with my colleague, Senator Moses Kajwang, who says that finding the governor guilty on one of the 17 charges is akin to cutting the leg of a cow and leaving it to bleed to death and believing that that is justifiable punishment. I want to believe, Mr. Speaker, that there is a preponderance of evidence that has been brought before us, even as you lead up to that one particular charge, that points to a county government that is not well run, to a county government where the executive treats the people with contempt. We have been given the evidence that despite the fact, Mr. Speaker, that the law may not be so specific on how, for example, the timeline with which a county budget economic forum should be established by a county governor, a good governor, somebody who cares about the interest of the people that voted him into office, should be diligent enough to have established such a forum. Unless the governor before us doesn't understand what is the importance of a county budget economic forum. It's about devolution, Mr. Speaker. It's about, this is the avenue where the citizens of a county gather and say, these are our key economic priorities. Unfortunately, many county governments have not established this. And the faults perhaps fall on many of us, especially those of us who serve in the Finance and Budget Committee, because this is not the first impeachment report that is recommending to the Senate that we need to stipulate the timelines. But surely, as a county government, as a county governor, sorry, Mr. Speaker, popularly elected, that you moved around, set out a vision, shared with the people of a particular county what you intend to do for them. You want to tell me, with a few months to run in office, if up to this particular point, you haven't formed the platform upon which people can evaluate your economic policies and see if it makes sense to them? Mr. Speaker, I beg for your protection because there is loud consultations to my right,
Okay.
and
Yeah, there is.
it's distracting my flow of thought.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the second allegation, because there's a very interesting chain of trends that is being set out here, that on this particular charge, when you read the report, you do realize that the county assembly perhaps has prosecuted a very important point. For example, if you establish the failure to draft a midterm strategy for a particular financial year, that the county governor was supposed to have delivered and shared the same with the county assembly. Of course, it will be impossible to guarantee or secure such a charge and pass it as having been validly brought before the county assembly, Mr. Speaker. But the truth of the matter, Mr. Speaker, is that the county assembly has laid a basis and has given us a sneak preview of the going-ons and the kind of attitude of the person that is in charge of this particular county, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll move on to the charge that this committee has found the governor culpable. And like colleagues, senators who have spoken before me, that perhaps this is our opportunity, colleagues, senators, to send a message across the entire republic. If you disagree, and I do not know of any senator who would agree with the way any of our 47 county governors are running the health docket, especially at this particular point when you're faced with a pandemic. I had two months ago, Mr. Speaker, send a petition to the county assembly and the county executive in my own county of Kericho, Mr. Speaker, reminding them that amidst a pandemic, we cannot be channeling more resources to key infrastructural projects because you know the goods and the promise that it gives in terms of kickback, as opposed to strengthening the health department in our various county governments. Therefore, as a senator, Mr. Speaker, and I do not know if my colleagues will agree with me, if you vote not in a way not to agree with the findings of this particular committee, that a county governor who does not pay keen interest on the health docket, the one most important, perhaps, if you may ask me, Mr. Speaker, because when you're sick, and many of the residents, the people that vote for us to come into this particular house, 80 or 90% varying from the various counties, cannot afford health services from the private hospitals, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, the difference between life and death to 80% of the citizens of our various county governments depends on the soundness of the health docket in that particular county. If you have a good, functional health facilities, then they live a long and prosperous life. If it is a sick, as the one that has been painted before us for Wajir County and many of the other counties, then many of the citizens will just die. And in this case, the county assembly was able to convince this particular committee that things are not good with regards to how the health docket has been managed in Wajir County. And therefore, pleading with us as a house with regards to the report that has been brought before us, Mr. Speaker, that this is an impeachable offense. I agree with them, Mr. Speaker, because if we do not send a clear message that governors need to take serious their oath of office, the resources that are being channeled to them, manage them in a way that Kenyans can for sure believe that it was the right decision in 2010 to move the country from managing our resources centrally and devolving them to our various county governments, then such instances are the things that in another 10 to 20 years, Mr. Speaker, if the Senate doesn't act, you'll hear clamors and calls across the nation where people will say, to hell with this devolution. Let us just go back to the days where our resources, our health facilities were managed by the Ministry of Health, so as to avert such a crisis, Mr. Speaker, because I am a strong pro-devolutionist, Mr. Speaker. I will agree with the findings of this particular committee, Mr. Speaker, that any particular offense that is found to Mr. Speaker, there's still a lot of interruption, especially if you can move the avocado farmer seated next to me in the name of Senator Kipchumba Murkomen.
I thought you were buddies and...
No, first of all, he's not properly dressed for chamber, Mr. Speaker. He's in a corduroy jeans. I'm not sure that fits.
Okay,
Anyway, Mr. Speaker, let me go back to my train of thought. He keeps on interjecting. You know he's a lawyer, Mr. Speaker, so I do not know whether he's extending legal services even inside the chamber. Mr. Speaker, before I was interrupted, I was laying a basis that even one charge confirmed, even if the allegations were 99, so long as the general mood and the general thinking in the committee is that it points to a county where there are serious cases of maladministration in the finance department, in health docket. We've seen that, just like we found previously with another governor. For example, the county government acts, Mr. Speaker, and I don't understand this obsession with Africans. As a lawmaker, sometimes I struggle to understand this, that for an African to do a right thing, you've got to specify to him as if it is a medical prescription. That for a county governor to know that at least once a year I need to go back to my county assembly and give progress, that they want us, that the county governors in this country want us to prescribe in the County Government Act and say it is a must for you to go. Come on, Mr. Speaker, common decency demands that since you cannot meet all the residents of your particular county, then at least have the decency to appear before their representatives, that is a county assembly, and give them a progress report of the things that you are doing. But since we haven't specified it in law, I see it appear so many times when we handled the impeachment, and I was in the particular committee of the impeachment trial of Governor Granton Samboja of Taita Taveta, Mr. Speaker. This charge was also there. At that particular time, the gentleman had never set foot in the county assembly. This kind of attitude is what is making citizens give up on devolution, and therefore we cannot excuse it, Mr. Speaker. And this continues to compound the thinking of many of our colleagues, that I plead with you that let us agree with the findings of this particular committee so that it sends out a lesson. You know, Mr. Speaker, if you are a fan of one of the drama series back in the day known as Vioja Mahakamani, that judge, I forget her name, she would issue her verdict and say, so that it becomes a lesson to you and others who are like you, who think and behave like you. Senator Moses Wetangula helped me to capture it better. That let this be an example to governors who don't step in their county assemblies, to governors who are running their county health dockets in the way Wajir case is being handled. This is our opportunity as a Senate, first of all, not to punish the good gentleman, not to disagree with the findings of this particular report, but to lay a basis so that Kenyans can see how is it that the Senate of the Republic of Kenya treats and considers such matters when they are brought before us. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, there is also a very interesting finding, and this issue that has been a general topic of debate. Of course, it's not, it doesn't feature much in the final concluding pages of the report, but if you read through the midst of the pages, you'll find this very mysterious character, that there's an office. Of course, it's a stranger in statute, the office of the First Lady. This is not a problem, again, Mr. Speaker, like I have said, that is unique to Wajir County only. I know of many county governments where this is increasingly becoming a challenge, where even members of the cabinet of our various counties have to give reports, and if they are not in favorable finding with the holders of that illegal office, then they know for a fact that they might be out of a job very soon. Senate needs to set its foot strong on this particular issue. We need even to interrogate county budgets, because I know in certain counties, those illegal offices even have a budget. And some of those actually budgets are more well endowed than the budget of certain key offices within the county, Mrs. Speaker. And therefore, granted this particular opportunity, this is our chance, Mr. Speaker, to set the record straight, whether Senate condone some of these practices that have been witnessed, or as a House, after having read through this particular report, I do not know how you will fail to agree with the findings of this particular committee, Mr. Speaker, and therefore grant the citizens of Wajir, and by extension, Mr. Speaker, the citizens of Kenya as a republic, because this is a lesson, and it's a wake-up call to many of our county governors to know that if you practice this kind of issues in your administration of various counties, then at a particular time, and we must allow the County Assembly of Wajir, Mr. Speaker, it's a county assembly that many of the rest of our county assemblies need to learn from. At this particular time, Mr. Speaker, it's not very common to find county assemblies that prosecute and raise weighty issues as have been raised, because many of our county assemblies, Mr. Speaker, we know, are under the capture of the executive, where they may not find fault with the county government, because perhaps maybe they have been roped into the schemes that are being described here. I read even, Mr. Speaker, though the committee report did not establish that particular charge on failure to report, a very common practice, the one of pending bills, Mr. Speaker. It's an unfortunate practice that is creeping into almost all our county governments. Mr. Speaker, I don't know if you know any person who is not related or perhaps are business cronies of our county governors who are still trading and doing business with our various county governments. It's no longer possible, because you run a contract, but then you wait for 2, 3, or 4 years to get paid, and perhaps even by the time your invoice is due, the administration has changed. That is a picture that is painted about Wajir, that each time the county governments make a requisition and millions are sent, you end up paying only 4, 5, or 6 suppliers, and mostly it is a big, high-value contracts that are being paid. The guys that owe 40, 50, or 100 million, for reasons that you all know before this House. But for the young hustlers of Wajir, and the young people that do business with our various county governments, the people who the county owes 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 million shillings, they never get their dues. Their businesses are sunk. That is a picture that is being painted here. We should not excuse such habits, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, that is one of the charges which I do not know what may have led to the basis of the committee not finding the governor culpable in. But I think the basis by the county assembly was properly laid. However, Mr. Speaker, fortunately, thanks to our standing orders and the Constitution, one of the charges has been confirmed. It leaves us with no option other than to agree with the guilt verdict that has been passed on, because it is a composition of all these other maladministrative practices that have been described in Wajir County. Though the county assembly may not have sufficiently prosecuted their case and provided the evidence as per the opinion of the committee, at least because on this particular one charge, they have laid the basis. Mr. Speaker, I agree with the findings of the committee, and I'll be waiting for the opportunity to cast my vote in support of this particular report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chila Yako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to take this opportunity to say that as a House, we have a very challenging responsibility, Mr. Speaker. we have an onerous task before us, and that task is to be the equivalent of the High Court, to be able to sift through evidence, to be able to listen to submissions, to be able to look at facts as they are, and also to be able to make a decision that may ultimately send a governor home or give a lease of political life to that particular governor. Now, Mr. Speaker, it has not escaped the attention of this House that the County Assembly of Wajir, by numbers of slightly more than 30, out of a number of slightly more than 40 something, agreed to forward the motion of impeachment or a request of impeachment to this House. It has also not escaped the attention of this House that a committee set by and appointed by this House unanimously decided that impeachment or confirmation of the charges was the way to go. There were several charges that were brought before this House, and most of those charges fell by the wayside, and only one charge has been left standing. And in my own shallow and hollow analysis, it appears to be the least grave charge. That is what appears to be, but nevertheless it's a charge, and the committee has come forth and said that it's worthy of impeachment. That's what is before us. Now, Mr. Speaker, I was looking at the report that we have before us, and I came by definition of, or not definition of impeachment, a view of impeachment from other jurisdictions, and the one that caught my attention is the one of Philippines. The one of Philippines, one Senator Santiago opined that impeachment is a quasi-judicial process and also a quasi-political process. Now, politics is a very strange animal. At least in a class I was taught about a judicial process, a process that must be correct in its process or procedure. A process must be right and logical in its content, and a process that must equally be logical and right in its outcome, so that the procedure of fairness is inbuilt through it, with the eventuality that the outcome is a just and fair outcome for the parties that brought the matter before the institution that needs to consider it. And in this case, it is the Senate of Kenya to consider the culpability of the governor of Wajir or the innocence or non-culpability of that governor. And that's what we are debating today. The other arm of that definition, which is also captured in the now famous case of Governor Wambora, that was decided regarding the decision of this House when it impeached or confirmed the impeachment of Governor Wambora. That impeachment is both quasi-judicial and quasi-political. Now, politics, in the understanding of ordinary but mischievous people, is something that is popular and not necessarily something that is right. That is what mischievous analysts of political definitions think about it. And leadership, if you are a politician, leadership is also about what is right and not necessarily what is popular. And more often than not, leaders have to make difficult decisions and forget the unpopularity attendant to such leadership positions. So that is also the other definition. So I'm sure at the end of the day, I suspect that there will be a lot of talk about what this House is likely to do. Are we making a popular decision which is right, or are we making an unpopular decision, or are we making a popular decision which is right, or a popular decision which is wrong? And I think the Council for the Governor introduced something that he called the Pontius Pilate moment. Pontius Pilate many years ago, and to set the record straight, I don't think none of us was present. We just read about it. I wasn't there, so I do not know. I read about it just like the council. Many years ago was faced with a similar decision. According to Pontius Pilate, he did not see the innocence or guilt of Jesus Christ. And before making his final verdict, Pontius Pilate decided to ask the people who were baying for the blood of Jesus, why do you want me to crucify this or to sentence this innocent person to death? Those fellas said that he had broken so many laws according to them. And when he pressed on, and they told him, no, do not today release the other gentleman who was a known criminal and peddler of bad behavior called Barabbas. We just want you to deal with this innocent guy. So at the end of it, the verdict was that Jesus was convicted on the popular will of those Jews. It is them who demanded for the conviction of Jesus, and it is them who had Jesus convicted and crucified. So that is again an ambiguity that I do not know how this House intends to vote, may arise at the end of the voting. So one of the questions that I ask myself as I go through this report was the verdict of the County Assembly of Wajir popular. It appears that the number that came up and supported that verdict was indeed a large number and could be described accurately as a popular movement to impeach the governor. But then the second question, because this is a quite political process, was it, or that particular decision, was it right? That I do not have the answer to, and I keep groping in the dark. Now I have looked at the report of the committee. I have also noticed that the report was quite popular with the members of the committee, but I'm trying to unravel that report and find out if it was right. And since Senator Okongo Mugen is my very good friend, I'll go to him so that he whispers to me whether it is right or not. I cannot at this stage go through it thoroughly, because there are other charges that were carried over from Wajir by the County Assembly that the Committee of the Distinguished Senior Counsel found to have been wrong. So that we will consult and see how to arrive at consensus between the two of us. But I also understand, and in previous decisions of this House, that issue of popularity of the verdict and unpopularity of the verdict has been debated, not necessarily in this chamber. I remember that one of Kirinyaga, the governor of Kirinyaga. It is something that is still being debated to date. And I'm baffled at the fact that were we right or were we wrong? So I am also looking at the one of Kiambu. That happened when I was out of the country trying to talk to God somewhere on other issues that were affecting me. But the debate is still out there. Were we right or were we wrong? That one of Nairobi came here, it found me here. I am sure if you brought the same voting or debate now, what will be the conclusion? Were we right or were we wrong? So this is the Pontius Pilate moment that the council asked us to deal with, and I'm still thinking about it today. Was Pontius Pilate right, or was Pontius Pilate wrong? And that is a debate that we can analyze, but it's very hard to know what was in the mind of Pontius Pilate. And it's also very hard to know what was in the minds of those Jews who were, including the Sanhedrin, who were asking very loudly for the blood of Jesus. And unfortunately, we forgive them, or fortunately, we forgive them, but that through that blood we got saved. So that is the hardest decision here. Now, I also want to say that politics has, because it's about power, it has very many interested parties and very many political forces, including 2022, and including many, many other factors. And are those factors right or are they wrong? Those are some of the difficult questions that politicians have to ask themselves. I do not know what has informed the position of my brother and very good friend, Senator Christopher Olangat of Bomet, whose rivers flood our place, and I wish we could reverse the course of those rivers. He probably was voting about the political rightness of the process or the legal correctness of the verdict. So all that is what was captured. And when I say this, people might think I take this stuff lightly. Impeachment is the replacement of the vote of no confidence. It's the replacement. In fact, during the era when we had a vote of no confidence, it did not matter whether you did wrong or not. The measure was how confident were the people in your leadership. How was your leadership fitting in the future discourse that was going on? So you will have an executive, a minister resign because perhaps those who have put them in that place have lost confidence in their conduct. So these are very many problems, and I have to juggle them. I am just about to make my decision when I'm about here, but I need to consult with my brother Omogeni, and I hope that I will be able, out of that consultation, to make the right decision. Now, Mr. Speaker, I finally would want to say this. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that before we as a House constituted this committee, there was skepticism as to whether a committee was equal to what is expected of Senate. And that skepticism was said inside this House by ourselves, was written about out there by the media, was the subject matter of very animated and robust debate out there. Now today, you can see that the committee has brought a report that there are various opinions about, but the quality and its content has not been impugned. That is an accolade we must pay to the entirety of that committee. Most committees, when their reports are brought here, they are loud murmurs about what may have transpired that may not have been part of the committee work, considerations that may have been out there that are not part of the committee work. I therefore think that in future, let us all trust in committees, let us hold them accountable. We are all in one committee or the other. The output or products of those committees have never been doubted or thought of in a demeaning manner, because that is how the House works. The House works through committees. This one has done a good job. You can be on the other side or on this side and debate about it the way you think without imputing improper motive. So I finally want to thank the committee and the House and urge all of us to give serious consideration when voting for this report, and serious considerations when looking at it in terms of process, which is about procedure as prescribed, in terms of content, which is about the evidence that was given to us, and in terms of output, which is contained in the report. Mr. Speaker, I beg to rest and now look for my decision. Thank you.
Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to say the process of impeachment is not legal per se. It's more of a political process that has been established. Mr. Speaker, on a lighter touch, the KQ just reported that unfortunately Stella is not coming back, the famous song, but she's the first lady to hit an international fair, unlike the local ones who hit Matatu Fair. Mr. Speaker, I want to say from the outset that it is this process is so sacrosanct and so sacred and important that we are making a decision not only about the governor but the people of Wajir. Mr. Speaker, the impeachment process, as I've indicated earlier on, is not a legal process per se. When you look at the jurisprudence across the world of impeachment, some people have been impeached in office, not per se on criminality issues, but sometimes on civil issues, on incompetence, on morality issues. So it is more of a political process as opposed to more legal process. Mr. Speaker, when Wajir County Assembly did impeach governor before us, there were so many accusations that faced him, I think around 17. And for some of us who are following keenly, we wanted to give the governor, the county assembly, and the great people of Wajir County, who are more than 755,000 or there, about 49 per square kilometer, and one of the biggest in terms of landmass in this country. We wanted to give them an opportunity for their case to be heard. They have had their case, Mr. Speaker, to be heard in this House. When you look at the grounds under Article 181 of Constitution 2010 of Kenya, the grounds of impeachment of a governor has been set out properly. And on those 4 grounds, the county assembly did try to raise their concerns. Mr. Speaker, I want to salute the committee. I've read their report. They have tried to be thorough as much as possible. They have tried to give us snippets of what they think should be right. And I think that the committee have done. And you know, there was push and pull, Mr. Speaker. Others wanted plenary, others wanted the committee. I think this is the first time the Senate is more of confident in the committee work. And I want to assure the people of Wajir and Kenyans at large that Parliament works through, and I said this when we were forming committee, that Parliament can either work through plenary or a committee. So the fact that you see committees maybe working across the country, Mr. Speaker, and to Kenyans at large, it means they are doing their parliamentary work. So I want to appeal to many people who don't understand the role of parliamentary process, that Parliament can work through plenary, Parliament can work through the committee, and having read. So when you look at Article 181, Mr. Speaker, the grounds have been set, and I think that is, and Section 63 of County Government Act, that is where the pivotal or the committee has been looking at those issues around the 4 issues that says gross violation of this constitution or any other law, where that the county governor has committed a crime under national and international law, abuse of office or gross misconduct, physical or mental incapacity, and I think those were the fulcrum that the committee was trying to look at, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you look under Article 226(5), and I think many people have been arguing what is the role of county governors? Governors enjoy an executive authority that is not only vested on county governor also, it's also vested on the county executive as provided by the Constitution. And therefore, they enjoy executive authority. When you look under Article 226(5), and I want to advise the governor, if he survives or not, if the holder of a public office, including a political office, directs or approves the use of public funds contrary to law or instructions, the person is liable for any loss arising from that use and shall make good the loss, whether the person remains the holder of the office or not. So it is very important that as we discuss people who are facing impeachment process in any forum, including here, they must be aware that the liability does not stop here. So if there is any liability that will be held somewhere else, they must be ready. So there are so many recourse that the people of Wajir, the governor, and many others, that they risk their liability after even this process when we conclude at the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I've looked at the report. I've read allegations raised by the county government, county assembly, and I want to say we appreciate the role the county assemblies are doing across the country. We know their role. They provide what we call primary oversight that we have as a nation. That is the authority that they are vested. And for devolution to work, we must partner, the Senate, the county assembly, and the county governments, for our devolutions to be effective, efficient, so that it does not turn into ineffective, moribund, and inefficiency, because the ultimate consumer of service delivery is the ordinary Wanjiku. And I think going by that fact, Mr. Speaker, there are so many issues that were raised, like employment process. I would have expected there is an officer which is under investigation, somebody by the name Warrior, or somebody who is interdicted. When I try to look at the county, how the employments are done, they are done through County Public Service Board. But there was no link and nexus that could show that governor did directly influence in a specific way, because that was a personal stuff. The advisor has provided for even us when we appoint our PS, our security, and many others, we appoint on that basis. Number 2, the MCS or the county assembly case in this report say that the CEOs and CECs do not have a capacity. We agree these are political appointees. But the law is very clear that the CECs and CEOs must be vetted and approved by the county assembly. So the question is, why did the county assembly approve CEOs and CECs that do not have capacity? Even if they approve and they realize they didn't have capacity, what recourse have they done? Have they done motion of no confidence to that CEC or CECs or CEOs? Because we amended the County Government Act, and then, Mr. Speaker, I was there when that amendment was being proposed, and it is now the law. What other measures has the County Assembly used so that even when we want to come and impeach the governor, whether he survives or not, the MCAs across the country must understand that they have tools at their place. And I want to ask the MCAs, even if we finish this process either way, they must go back and use the tools that they have. If a CEC or a CEO does not have capacity, is incompetent, then that CEO or CC must be removed through a vote of no confidence. And that is the power that the MCAs have. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, I was very keen when I was told there is a supreme leader, a lady by the name, I think the spouse of the governor, first lady, I think by the name Kair Omar, in the proxy that has been provided. And I was shocked, Mr. Speaker, that allegedly she was receiving over 305 million through proxies. And I was very keen because I was told this spouse of the governor was sitting in committee meetings I was in that forum and they said there was no minister to prove, Mr. Speaker. The county said, and I want to beseech our MCS. In this house, we deal with evidence. I wish they could give us minutes where the spouse of the governor was making decisions on behalf of the county government. It is no place anywhere in the law that the First Lady should occupy a certain position of making executive decisions. But they should have been nexus. There was number 2 allegations that 305 million was being deposited in their account through the companies that were being created, Mr. Speaker, of over 305 million through Kenya Commercial Bank, Mr. Speaker, KCB. But at the end of the day, there was no nexus, Mr. Speaker, to prove that the spouse of governor, Mrs. Omar, and I think the daughter called Faria or some, I hope she's not related with the senator we have here, but I believe so, it's just a name. Mr. Speaker, there was no nexus. I wish the MCS, even the banking deposit that they gave us, how can we convict, Mr. Speaker? When you bring a document that is not authenticated, the evidence law is very clear. We know River Road here, Mr. Speaker, I can go and cook and come up with a letter that is not authenticated and present it to the House if we are not careful, because this enjoys quasi-judicial mechanism, Mr. Speaker, then it means we can be admitting anything that comes about. I wish, and my prayer, and as advised MCS as they go back, make sure any document that you submit before the Senate is authenticated. It might look politically correct and sensational to say the spouse of governor is running affairs in Wajir County government, but you must provide the nexus so that it allows us to convict or acquit the governor on that basis, Mr. Speaker. So on that, I was very keen. I've tried to look at the reports. I've tried to look at the KCB statements. It was never authenticated. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I wish, and all of us, of course, in future, we don't want also first ladies overrunning county governments, but we hope they will stick their lane, because in one instance, the allegations and all of us followed by the county assemblies that the governor sometimes holds, and Governor Speaker, you have been also a governor, so I don't know, because when the governor used to hold meetings that relate to the running of county in his official residence, of course you'd expect the spouse to be there to prepare for you tip. If you don't take tea in governor's office and nice things, then a governor's mansion, then you might think the governor is mean, and therefore the spouse must be there, unless you the other things that you are following up. Mr. Speaker, on another point is that we need to agree. I agree with senators that have said, Mr. Speaker, because I wanted to be short, because they say brevity is the soul of wit. Mr. Speaker, what I can say at this point in the issue of health, under Article 43, Mr. Speaker, right to health and economic social rights is a fundamental right. In fact, it is in the Constitution that the President of the Republic of Kenya, President Uhuru, must give us the reports on the status of implementation of economic and social rights. Right to health is so keen. I've looked at the issue of that there is health. Mr. Speaker, we agree that our counties are suffering with crisis. Even as we talk, in March 2021, Nandi County Assembly, through its ad hoc committee, tabled a report in Nandi County Assembly on the investigation into COVID funds. And they found that in Kapsabet County Referral Hospital, there was a dysfunctional oxygen plant. And in fact, one lady allegedly died due to lack of oxygen. The problem of health is so rampant. But the question is it a threshold to impeach a governor? Because if we were to impeach a governor, does it mean, and I want Senator Cheruiyot to listen to this, does it mean that if there is dysfunctional, I agree that executive authority, the governor should be careful, it should be ahead of things, but provision of lack of this, does it mean that this ground is impeachable for governor? The elephant in the room, and I've said before, Mr. Speaker, and answer can bear me, the National Treasury under CS Ukuri Yatani, under Article 219, has been violating the law. As we talk, 2020-21 is coming to an end. Counties are owed more than 100 billion. So how do you imagine counties to function when the National Treasury is violating Article 219 by not releasing sufficient funds? I wish when we were discussing this impeachment, almost the last tranche of Wajir County government should have been deposited in their accounts. Because, Mr. Speaker, the running, and I agree, I have seen they have allocated 2.4 billion to the health department in Wajir County government executive. I wish, Mr. Speaker, even as we discuss about the impeachment of governor here, Mahamud, we should be very keen and ask the National Treasury to release money so that our counties can function, so that services can be delivered. Mr. Speaker, on the aspect, and I agree that health has failed. Even, Mr. Speaker, Senator Kajwang raised a very important point. At the national level, you find a cabinet secretary in charge of health, Mutai Kagwe, is discussing irrelevancies as to oppose that when we are getting the second AstraZeneca vaccine. Should we impeach President Uhuru Kenyatta? Should we move a vote of confidence against Mutai Kagwe? Because he's busy discussing BBI as opposed to telling us when is COVID coming to the country. Those are serious issues that we must ask ourselves. As we talk today, Kenyans are yet to receive vaccine, Mr. Speaker. Kenyans are now the only strategy that we have. When COVID, or I've seen, and I don't know whether it's now economical or what, they are saying in July there is a fourth wave of COVID. The only weapon the government will put in place, lockdown, ensure you close everybody down, restrictions and what have you. Yet we are not discussing vaccination. So the point is you need now to scale down to the level of Wajir County. Mr. Speaker, and therefore I think the issue of health is so personal, and I think we need a concerted effort on how we can deal with this when it comes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, finally, because I'm seeing the light is going, and I agree, I support County Assembly that they need autonomy, and I hope as there is a gap that we need to put legislation so that they can have a vote in Treasury, Mr. Speaker, so that they don't really, because I know we had an issue of Mombasa County, and I remember then the Devolution Committee, we sat and discussed with Mombasa County Assembly and Mombasa County government where the funds were being staffed by the county government so that the county assembly does not function properly, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I agree that the county assembly should be given autonomy and going forward into the future. Finally, Mr. Speaker, because I will make my decisions as I consult the oracles of and talk to Koitale Darab Saboe and many others, Mr. Speaker, is finally I want to my plea to the people of Wajir, County Assembly and the governor, and specifically to the governor, if you survive this, there is a lot of work that needs to be done in Wajir County government. There is a lot of work that need to be discussed. There is a petition, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, on corruption in Wajir County. Not all is well in Wajir County. So I want to advise you, Governor, even if you survive, you must go back and deliver for those people. You have served before in the county, you have served before as a minister, as an ambassador. Why don't you use those managerial skills to better the lives of Wajir County government? And I've heard you have been number 2 in diagnostic, you have presented your plea here, but we want to see that into reality, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, because in the interest of time and my colleagues, and we have a session very early tomorrow, allow me to rest, Mr. Speaker, and say when time comes, as Senator Wetangula would say, we will make that decision when we cross the bridge. Thank you very much.
Senator Mwinyi Haji.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia ripoti ambayo imeletwa na kamati teule kuhusiana na kuondolewa mamlakani kwa gavana wa Wajir. Kwanza kabisa Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa kuipongeza kamati hii kwa kuweza kuja na ripoti ambayo imekubalika na wanachama wote wa kamati hiyo. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni nadra sana kuweza kupata wanakamati kukubaliana na masuala ambayo yamewekwa mbele yao. Kwa hivyo naipongeza kamati ambayo